This 4-year-old beggar girl says, "My stepmother makes me sleep with the dogs, but a millionaire hears this and does something that will shock you." Comment what you think will happen. Your opinion is very important, and subscribe to my channel to support my work. Your help is very important. The cracked sidewalks of downtown Charleston bruised Violet's bare feet as she walked along King Street, her tattered clothes a stark contrast to the elegance of the historic mansions around her. The 6-year-old clutched a dirty piece of cardboard, her brown eyes too big for her thin face, when she whispered words that cut through the cool afternoon air like a blade. "My stepmom makes me sleep with the dogs in the backyard." Edmund Castanera stopped dead in his tracks upon hearing those words. The 52-year-old businessman had just left a tense meeting at the Mills House Hotel, where he had been discussing the expansion of his artisan furniture factory. But now all his attention was focused on that frail child begging for change on the sidewalk. Something in Violet's expression, a mixture of resignation and sadness that shouldn't exist in someone so young, awakened a familiar ache in his chest. 15 years had passed since Edmund lost his daughter Isabella in a car accident. The key girl was only 7 years old when she was ripped from his life, leaving a void that destroyed his marriage to Beatrice and plunged him into a guilt that still consumed him. Since then, he had avoided contact with children, but there was something about Violet that prevented him from simply moving on. "Excuse me," he said, crouching down to be at the girl's level. "Do you live around here?" Violet raised her eyes, hesitant. Her skin was dirty, and there were dark marks on her thin arms. "I live in North Charleston with Darla. She's my stepmom." "And your parents?" Edmund asked gently, noticing how she flinched at the mention of her stepmother. "Mom left when I was a baby. Daddy Ron has been gone for a while. Darla said he abandoned me too." Violet's voice was small, but there was a disturbing maturity in her words. Edmund felt his heart clench. He took out a $50 bill from his wallet and handed it to Violet, who widened her eyes in surprise. "Buy something to eat, okay?" That night, Edmund couldn't get the image of the girl out of his head. Alone in his empty mansion on Daniel Island, he walked through the rooms decorated with expensive furniture he produced in his factory, but which couldn't fill the void left by Isabella's absence. Violet's words echoed in his mind. Slept with. Dogs. Abandoned by her father, living on the streets begging. The next day, against all his better judgment, Edmund decided to look for the girl again. He found her in the same spot, but this time she was accompanied by a tired-looking woman, her bleached hair pulled back haphazardly and wearing cheap clothes. Darla was 38 years old, but she looked older. Her hard eyes watched Violet impatiently as the girl tried to get some coins from passers-by. "Hurry up, I gotta get to work," Darla grumbled, pulling Violet by the arm with more force than necessary. Edmund followed them discreetly, keeping a safe distance as they walked through the streets leading to the North Charleston neighborhood. The house where they stopped was small and poorly maintained, with peeling paint on the walls and windows without curtains. The side yard was full of debris and accumulated trash. Hidden behind a tree across the street, Edmund watched Darla push Violet into the house. Minutes later, the woman came out again, locking the door from the outside with a padlock. Violet appeared at the window, her small hands pressed against the dirty glass, watching her stepmother walk away. When night fell, Edmund was still there, watching. He saw Darla return and throw a plate of food in the yard, along with the 3 mixed-breed dogs that lived tied up there. Violet appeared from the back door, picked up the plate and sat on the dirty ground, sharing the meager food with the animals. The scene broke Edmund's heart. That child really slept in the yard, among the dogs, under the cold stars of South Carolina. When Violet lay down on an old piece of tarp, using a torn T-shirt as a blanket, Edmund had to walk away. His hands were trembling with anger and indignation. During the drive back home, Edmund made a decision that would change his life forever. He couldn't simply pretend he hadn't seen it. Violet needed help, and he had the resources and the determination to offer it. In the following days, Edmund began to appear casually in the places where Violet begged. He always brought her something, a sandwich, a juice, sometimes clothes that he said were left over from donations. Gradually, the girl began to trust him, sharing small details of her difficult life. "Can you read?" he asked one afternoon, offering her a children's book. "A little bit," Violet replied, turning the pages carefully. "Daddy Ron taught me some words before he left. He said I was smart." "And you were indeed smart," Edmund confirmed, watching her decipher some simple sentences. "What else did your father teach you?" Violet's eyes lit up for the first time. "He taught me about wood. I can smell it and know what kind it is. Cedar smells sweet, hickory smells strong, mahogany is softer." Edmund was impressed. His factory worked exclusively with fine woods, and few adults had this natural ability to identify them by aroma. Violet also showed him her drawings made with charcoal on the ground, detailed figures that demonstrated an impressive artistic talent for her age. "You are very talented, Violet," he said sincerely. "You deserve much better than you have now." The girl lowered her eyes. "Darla says I'm a burden, that she only puts up with me because she gets money from the government because of me." Those words confirmed Edmund's suspicions. Darla was using Violet only for the benefit she received. The situation was even worse than he had imagined, and he knew he needed to act quickly. The girl's health was visibly deteriorating. She coughed constantly, was increasingly thin, and had strange spots on her skin that looked like signs of severe malnutrition. That night, Edmund made a risky decision. He would confront Darla directly, offering her a proposal she couldn't refuse. Edmund knocked on the door of the rundown house at 8 o'clock the next morning, when he knew Darla would be getting ready to leave for work as a cleaning lady. The woman opened the door with an irritated expression, but her attitude changed quickly when she saw the well-dressed man in front of her. "Good morning, Miss Darla. I am Edmund Castanheira, owner of the furniture factory in the area. I would like to talk about a job." "Job? For me?" Darla's eyes sparkled with interest. "Actually, I have a proposal that could benefit both you and Violet," Edmund said, choosing his words carefully. "I need someone for domestic work in my house, and in return I could offer suitable accommodations for both of you." Darla frowned. "Accommodations? We have our own house here. With all due respect, I have observed that Violet does not have adequate living conditions. My property has enough space, and the girl could have her own room, regular meals." "No!" Darla cut him off abruptly. "Violet stays here with me, and I don't need charity from anyone." Edmund felt frustration rise, but he maintained his composure. "It's not charity, Ms. Darla. It's an opportunity for honest work." "Listen here, Mr. Fancy Pants." Darla crossed her arms. "I don't know who you think you are, but Violet is my responsibility. She receives government benefits. I have documents to prove it." "Adoption papers?" Edmund asked directly. Darla hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering. "Legal documents, and now, if you'll excuse me, I have to work." The door slammed in Edmund's face, leaving him frustrated but not defeated. Darla's reaction only confirmed his suspicions. There was something wrong with Violet's legal guardianship. That same day, he sought out Mirtes Oliveira, a 61-year-old retired social worker he knew from previous charitable work. "Edmund, it's good to see you," said Mirtes, welcoming him into her small apartment full of plants. "What can I do for you?" He told her the whole story of Violet, from the first words he heard to Darla's refusal to accept help. Mirtes listened to him with growing attention, taking notes in an old notebook. "This story doesn't smell right to me," she said when he finished. A stepmother who receives benefits but doesn't have adoption papers. I'll investigate discreetly. While Mirtes worked, Edmund continued his meetings with Violet, always bringing food and talking about things that made her smile. He discovered that she had an impressive intelligence. She could solve simple math problems in her head and had a photographic memory that allowed her to reproduce complex drawings after seeing them only once. "Where did you learn to draw like that?" he asked, watching her create a detailed figure of a bird on the ground with charcoal. "Daddy Ron taught me. He drew the furniture he made on paper before cutting the wood." Violet's eyes filled with tears. "He was very nice to me. I don't know why he left." Edmund felt a stab in his heart. "Do you miss him?" "Very much. Darla says he abandoned me because I'm bad, but I don't remember being bad with him." "You're not bad, Violet. Never think that." During this conversation, Edmund didn't realize they were being watched. Beatrice Moreira, his ex-wife, was walking along King Street when she spotted him talking intently with a child. She stopped, hiding behind a column, watching the scene with curiosity and a stab of familiar pain. Beatrice was 46 years old, now brown hair with some grey strands and green eyes that still held the mark of Isabella's loss. After the divorce, she had married Claudio Mendez, a kind pediatrician who tried to fill the void in her life but never completely succeeded. Now, seeing Edmund interact with that girl, painful memories resurfaced. That same afternoon, Mirtes called Edmund with disturbing findings. "There is no official record of adoption by Darla," she informed him. "Violet is officially still under the guardianship of distant uncles who live in Greenville, and from what I discovered, they never visit her." "How is that possible?" "Darla forged some documents to get the benefit. It's not legal, but it happens more than we imagine. The worst thing is that I found information about Ron, Violet's father. Did he really abandon her?" "No, Edmund. Ron was admitted to a psychiatric hospital in Colombia 8 months ago. He had a psychotic break caused by severe depression." Darla hid this information to continue receiving the benefits intended for his daughter. Edmund's blood boiled. "You mean she lied to a 6-year-old child about her father being dead?" "Not dead, abandoned. But yes, she lied. And there's more. Neighbors report that on the night of Ron's hospitalization, there was a terrible fight in the house. Violet witnessed everything." Edmund clenched his fists. The situation was even worse than he had imagined. Violet not only lived in deplorable conditions, but also carried the trauma of having seen her father in a psychotic break without understanding what had happened. The next day, when he went to meet Violet at the usual spot, she wasn't there. Worried, he waited for hours, but the girl didn't show up. When he finally decided to go to the house in North Charleston, he found the windows closed and no sign of movement. An elderly neighbor watering plants on the sidewalk approached. "If you're looking for Darla and the girl, they left early with suitcases. I heard her saying something about moving to another state." Edmund's heart froze. Darla was running away with Violet, probably because she suspected his intentions. He ran to the car, not knowing if he could find them in time, but determined not to lose another child in his life. Edmund scoured the bus stations of Charleston throughout the afternoon, showing photos of Violet that he had taken discreetly with his cell phone to employees and passengers. At the terminal of the Greyhound Company, an attendant confirmed seeing a woman with a small child buying tickets to Charlotte, North Carolina. They boarded the 2 o'clock bus, the employee informed him. The girl seemed scared, crying softly. Edmund looked at his watch. It was almost 5 o'clock. The bus had a 3-hour head start, and he didn't know exactly which city they had gone to. Feeling desperate, he called Mirtes for help. "Calm down, Edmund. I'll try to track them through Violet's uncles in Greenville. If Darla is running away, she may have looked for them to try to legalize the situation." While he waited for news, Edmund made a decision that would change everything. He needed help, and there was only one person who could fully understand his anguish for a child in danger. He drove to Claudio Mendez's office, where he knew Beatrice usually volunteered some afternoons a week. He found her organizing donated medications in the storeroom of the community center attached to the office. Beatrice raised her eyes in surprise. When she saw him, her pale face suddenly paling further. "Edmund, what are you doing here?" "Beatrice, I need to talk to you. It's about a child." She stiffened. After Isabella's loss, Beatrice had flatly refused to have other children, and any mention of children left her visibly uncomfortable. "I can't help," she said, turning back to the boxes of medicine. "Please, just listen to me. A 6-year-old girl is in real danger." Something in the urgency of his voice made Beatrice stop. Against her will, she turned to face him. "What kind of danger?" Edmund told her the whole story, from the first meeting with Violet to Darla's escape that morning. As he spoke, he saw Beatrice's expressions change from initial resistance to horror, and finally to a familiar determination that he recognized from the times when they were married. "This woman is using a child to receive benefits while mistreating her," asked Beatrice, indignant. "Yes, and now she ran away with her." "Beatrice, I know it's a lot to ask after everything we've been through, but you have experience with traumatized children. I need your help." "Edmund, you know I can't, not after Isabella," she said, closing her eyes, fighting against painful memories. "This girl reminds me of our daughter," he said softly. "The same intelligence, the same willpower, despite everything she's been through. I can't just abandon her." At that moment, Edmund's cell phone rang. It was Mirtes with news. "I found Darla. She's in Greenville, but not with Violet's uncles. She's at a cheap motel near the bus station. From what I've gathered, the uncles refused to take them in." "I'm going there right now," said Edmund. "Wait, there's something else you need to know. I was able to access Ron's hospital records through an old contact. Edmund, there's information about his family that could change everything." "What information?" "I need to confirm some data before I tell you, but if I'm right, Violet may have more connections to your life than we imagine." Edmund hung up, confused but determined. Beatrice watched him with an expression he couldn't decipher. "I'm going with you," she said suddenly. "Beatrice, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do. If this girl is really in danger, I can't stay here pretending it's not my problem." She took a deep breath. "Besides, there's something I need to tell you, and maybe this is the right time." They hit the road to Greenville in Edmund's car, the tense silence broken only by the GPS giving directions. When Beatrice finally spoke, her words completely shocked him. "I'm pregnant, Edmund." He almost lost control of the steering wheel. "What? I found out 2 weeks ago. Claudio doesn't know yet. In fact, I don't know how to tell him because—" She hesitated. "Because I'm not sure who the father is." Edmund pulled the car over to the side of the road, trembling. "Beatrice, what are you saying? Remember Marina's birthday party 3 months ago? You were there. Claudio was traveling for work. We talked about Isabella. We drank too much." The memories came back like a wave. The party of a mutual friend, the emotional conversation about the daughter they lost, the night they spent together reliving a love they thought had died with Isabella. "Good God," he murmured. "I don't know what to do, Edmund. If I tell Claudio about that night, I could lose my marriage, but if the baby is yours—" "We'll figure that out later," he said, trying to process the information. "Right now, we need to focus on Violet." They arrived at the motel in Greenville at night. The establishment was run down, with flickering lights and a musty smell in the hallways. The receptionist, a bored man watching television, confirmed that Darla was staying in room 237. "Does she have a child with her?" asked Beatrice. "Yes, a little girl. They haven't left the room all day. The woman seems nervous. She keeps looking out the window all the time." Edmund and Beatrice climbed the creaking stairs to the second floor. When they arrived at the door, Of room 237, they heard voices arguing inside. Darla was talking on the phone, her voice altered by the tension. "I can't go back now. That man is investigating. He found things out. I need to disappear with the girl for a while. And where am I going to take her? Nobody wants a kid." Darla's voice got lower. "So that's it? Am I going to have to put her up for adoption? But what about the benefit money?" Edmund and Beatrice exchanged horrified glances. Darla was planning to abandon Violet completely, probably in some shelter where she could pretend the girl got lost. It was then that they heard a small and familiar voice. "Darla, I'm hungry. Can you give me a little food?" "Shut up. Can't you see I'm talking?" Darla's response was followed by the sound of a slap and muffled crying. Beatrice couldn't control herself. She knocked on the door forcefully. "Open this door now!" The silence on the other side was absolute. Then they heard hurried footsteps and a window being opened. Edmund ran to the fire escape and managed to see Darla climbing down the metal grate, carrying a small suitcase and leaving Violet alone in the room. When they managed to break down the door with the help of a hotel employee, they found Violet huddled in the corner of the bed, with a red mark on her face and tears streaming down. Upon seeing Edmund, she ran into his arms. "She said she was going to leave me in a house full of orphan kids," Violet sobbed. "She said I'm too much trouble and nobody wants me." Beatrice approached slowly, her eyes watery. When Violet looked at her, something magical happened. The same instant connection she had felt with Isabella years ago. "Hello, sweetie," said Beatrice softly. "I'm Beatrice, and we want you very much, yes." Violet fell asleep in Beatrice's lap during the drive back to Charleston. The girl was exhausted, malnourished, and still scared, but for the first time in months she slept soundly, feeling safe. Beatrice stroked her brown hair, observing the delicate features that in some mysterious way resembled Isabella. "She can't go back to Darla," said Beatrice firmly. "Not after what we saw." "I completely agree," replied Edmund, driving along the dark road. "But legally, the situation is complicated. Darla is still considered the legal guardian, even if fraudulently." "Then let's make it legal," said Beatrice, with a determination that Edmund hadn't seen in years. "Let's get permanent custody." They arrived at Edmund's mansion on Daniel Island past midnight. Beatrice carried the sleeping Violet to Isabella's old room, which had remained untouched for 15 years. Upon turning on the lights, both felt a pang in their hearts, stored toys, children's books on the shelves, drawings still taped to the wall. "Is it okay to use this room?" asked Beatrice hesitantly. Edmund watched Violet being placed delicately on the bed that once belonged to his daughter. "I think Isabella would be happy to know she's helping another child." The next morning, Violet woke up in a completely new world. The room was bigger than the whole house where she lived with Darla. There were clean toys, colourful books, and a window overlooking a flower garden. When she went down to the kitchen, she found Beatrice preparing a full breakfast: scrambled eggs, fresh fruit, warm bread, and hot chocolate. "Good morning, sweetheart," said Beatrice, smiling. "Did you sleep well?" Violet nodded shyly, still not believing that this was real. "Can I eat all this?" Beatrice's heart broke. "Of course you can, and whenever you're hungry, just ask for more." Edmund arrived at that moment, carrying papers and with a worried expression. "Mirtis is coming here at 10 o'clock. She managed to schedule an urgent meeting with a judge from the juvenile court. And Darla? The police are looking for her, but she knows the area well. She could be hiding anywhere." While they waited for Mirtis, Beatrice took Violet to see the house. The girl was fascinated by the library, running her small fingers along the spines of the books. In Edmund's office, her eyes lit up upon seeing technical drawings of furniture scattered across the table. "You draw furniture like Daddy Ron," she exclaimed. "Would you like to learn?" asked Edmund. Violet nodded enthusiastically. Edmund gave her paper and pencils, and in a few minutes she was reproducing one of the drawings with impressive accuracy. Beatrice watched, increasingly enchanted by the girl's intelligence. Mirtes arrived punctually at 10 o'clock, accompanied by a serious, middle-aged woman. "This is Dr. Carla Rodriguez, a judge from the Charleston Juvenile Court," Mirtes introduced. She agreed to personally assess Violet's situation. The judge spoke at length with the girl, asking gentle questions about her life with Darla, with her father Ron, and how she felt now. Violet answered with touching honesty, telling about the nights sleeping in the yard, the constant hunger, and the fear she had of her stepmother. "And how do you feel here?" asked Dr. Carla to Edmund and Beatrice. "Like we're taking care of our own daughter," replied Beatrice without hesitation. The judge made careful notes. "Darla's situation is clearly irregular, but to grant you temporary custody, I need to better understand the relationship between the two of you. Are you married?" Edmund and Beatrice exchanged uncomfortable glances. "We've been divorced for 12 years, Edmund explained, "but we are willing to work together for Violet's well-being." "And you, Miss Beatrice? Aren't you married to someone else?" Beatrice hesitated. "Yes, I'm married to Dr. Claudio Mendez, but he doesn't know about this situation yet." The judge frowned. "That complicates things. Your husband needs to be aware and agree with such an important decision." At that moment, Beatrice's phone rang. It was Claudio, who had returned from his trip and was worried about her disappearance the night before. "Where were you, Beatrice?" "I came home and you weren't there. Claudio, I need to talk to you urgently. Can you come to Edmund's house?" "Edmund's house? What's going on?" "Please, just come. It's about a child who needs our help." An hour later, Claudio arrived visibly confused and worried. The 42-year-old pediatrician, with graying hair and discreet glasses, stopped at the door upon seeing the scene. Beatrice playing on the floor with an unfamiliar girl, while Edmund and two women watched with papers scattered across the table. "Beatrice, what is all this?" he asked, clearly disturbed. Beatrice stood up, holding Violet's hand. "Claudio, I want you to meet Violet. She's 6 years old and has been through terrible situations of abandonment and abuse." Claudio knelt down to the girl's level, his medical instinct kicking in immediately. He noticed the paleness, the signs of malnutrition, the mark on her face where Darla had hit her. "Hello, sweetie. I'm Dr. Claudio," he said gently. "Can I examine you to see if everything is okay?" Violet looked at Beatrice, who nodded encouragingly. The improvised medical examination revealed clear signs of prolonged neglect, moderate malnutrition, anemia, various bruises in different stages of healing. "This child needs immediate medical attention," Claudio said to the judge, "and she has clearly been a victim of systematic abuse." Dr. Carla made more notes. "Dr. Claudio, your wife and Mr. Edmund are requesting temporary custody of Violet. Would you support that decision?" Claudio looked at Beatrice, then at Edmund, clearly processing the complex situation. "If this child needs protection, then yes, I fully support it, even knowing that it would mean your wife dividing time and attention with her ex-husband." The question echoed heavily in the room. Claudio watched Beatrice playing with Violet again, seeing her smile for the first time in years. "My wife lost a daughter," he said calmly. "If taking care of Violet can help her heal and help a child in need, then you have my full support." The judge finally smiled. "Very well. I will grant temporary custody for 90 days, enough time to regularize the legal situation and find Darla for the formal procedures." After Mirtes and the judge left, Claudio pulled Beatrice into a private conversation in the garden. "Beatrice, I need to know the truth. What is really your relationship with Edmund now?" She took a deep breath, knowing she could no longer delay the conversation. "Claudio, there's something I need to tell you about Marina's party." Meanwhile, inside the house, Edmund was showing Violet how to use technical drawing tools. The girl absorbed each explanation with fascination, her small hands creating precise lines on the paper. "You have a lot of talent, Violet," he said. "When you grow up, you could be an architect or a designer." "What's that?" she asked. "They are people who create beautiful houses and furniture for other people to live better." Violet's eyes sparkled. "Like you do?" "Exactly like I do." At that moment, his phone rang. It was Myrtis with urgent news. "Edmund, I need to talk to you immediately. I got the complete records of Ron, and the discovery is unbelievable." "What did you find?" "Ron Silver is not just Violet's father. He is Isabella's adoptive brother." Edmund dropped the pencil. "How is that possible?" "When Ron's adoptive parents died, he was 16 years old and went to live with other relatives. He changed his last name, lost contact with the original records, but the maiden name of his biological mother is the same as the one on Isabella's birth certificate. They are half-siblings." The discovery hit Edmund like lightning. Violet was not just a child in need that he had decided to help. She was Isabella's niece, his niece too. Fate had brought his family back to him in a way he had never imagined possible. When Beatrice and Claudio returned from the garden, Beatrice was crying, but there was relief in her face. Claudio looked shaken, but determined. "I told him everything," she said to Edmund, "about that night, about the pregnancy, about not knowing who the father is." Claudio approached Edmund. "I won't pretend this doesn't hurt, but Beatrice and I will work together to resolve our situation, and that includes taking care of Violet in the best way possible." "There's something else you need to know," said Edmund, still processing Myrtis' revelation. "We discovered that Violet is Isabella's niece. Ron, her father, is our daughter's half-brother." The silence that followed was absolute. Beatrice fell into a chair, her hands trembling. "How is that possible?" "Lost records. Name changes over the years. But it's true, Violet is our blood family." Violet, who had observed the entire conversation without fully understanding, approached Beatrice. "Why are you crying? Did I do something wrong?" Beatrice hugged her tightly. "No, honey, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm crying because we discovered that you always belonged to this family." 3 weeks had passed since Violet had arrived at the mansion, and the transformation was visible. Her hair gained shine, the signs of malnutrition began to disappear, and for the first time in her life she was experiencing what it was to have a healthy routine. Every morning Beatrice took her to the community center where she worked, and in the afternoon Edmund taught her about woods and technical drawings in his factory. "See Violet," explained Edmund, showing different types of wood. "Each one has its own personality. Cedar is soft and fragrant, perfect for wardrobes. Mahogany is noble and resistant, ideal for furniture that will last for generations." Violet touched each piece of wood with reverence, inhaling the aromas that her father Ron had taught her to identify. "Daddy said that wood holds stories, that each ring in the trunk tells a year of the tree's life." "Your father was a wise man," said Edmund softly, "and you inherited that wisdom." Meanwhile, Beatrice faced her own internal battles. The pregnancy was progressing. She was already 10 weeks along, and the morning sickness was intensifying. Claudio had scheduled regular appointments, but the tension at home was palpable. They talked about practical issues related to Violet, but avoided the subject of the baby's paternity. "How are you feeling?" asked Claudio one morning, preparing a ginger tea to ease Beatrice's nausea. "Physically better, emotionally confused," she admitted. "Taking care of Violet has been a blessing, but the situation between us—" "We'll figure it out, Beatrice. No matter who the biological father is, this baby will have a loving home." Claudio's dedication touched Beatrice deeply, but also increased her guilt. How could she have betrayed such a good and understanding man? That same day, Myrtis brought news about Ron. "I got authorization to visit him at the psychiatric hospital. The treatment is working, and the doctors believe he can receive supervised discharge in a few months." "And how did he react to learning about Violet?" asked Edmund. He was devastated to discover that Darla lied about having abandoned his daughter. He thought Violet hated him. When he learned that she had always asked about him, he cried for hours. Can Violet visit him? The doctors think it would be beneficial for both, but she needs to be prepared. Ron still has episodes of anxiety, and seeing his daughter after so long can be emotionally intense. Edmund talked to Beatrice about the possibility of the visit. Together, they carefully prepared Violet, explaining that her father was sick, but recovering, and that he had not abandoned her as Darla said. "Does Daddy still love me?" asked Violet with hopeful eyes. "Very much, sweetie," replied Beatrice. "He never stopped loving you." The visit to the hospital was scheduled for the end of the week. Meanwhile, life at the mansion had found a rhythm of its own. Violet slept in Isabella's room, but gradually personalized the space with her own drawings and small treasures. Beatrice helped her with basic reading and math lessons, discovering that the girl had a thirst for knowledge. "Why don't you and Edmund live together if you like each other?" asked Violet during a drawing session. The innocent question hit Beatrice like a stab. "It's complicated, honey. Sometimes adults make mistakes that hurt the people they love. But can't you say sorry and try again?" It's not always that simple. In fact, Beatrice had realized that her feelings for Edmund were resurfacing. Seeing him take care of Violet with such dedication, observing his patience and kindness, rekindled emotions that she thought she had buried along with Isabella. On the day of the visit to the hospital, Violet was nervous but eager. Edmund and Beatrice accompanied her to Columbia, where Ron had been hospitalized for almost a year. The South Carolina State Hospital was a sad place, with long corridors and the characteristic smell of disinfectant. Ron was waiting for them in a spacious and well-lit visiting room. At 35 years old, he looked older, with prematurely grey hair and eyes that still bore traces of heavy medication. But when he saw Violet, his face transformed completely. "My little one," he whispered, kneeling down to be at his daughter's level. Violet ran into her father's arms, and both cried in an embrace. "Daddy, I knew you hadn't abandoned me. I knew it!" "Never, my love, never. Daddy got sick, but never stopped thinking about you." The conversation that followed was emotional and painful. Ron explained his illness in terms that Violet could understand, apologized for not being able to protect her, and thanked Edmund and Beatrice infinitely for taking care of her. "When I get completely better, I want to go back to taking care of Violet," he said. "But now I see that she's in good hands. Can you give me some time to compose myself?" "All the time you need," replied Edmund. "Violet will always know that you are her father." During the drive back, Violet was radiant. Having reunited with her father had healed a deep wound in her heart. But for Edmund and Beatrice, new complications were approaching. That night, after Violet fell asleep, Claudio sought out Beatrice for a serious conversation. "I received the results of the blood tests," he said, holding an envelope. "We can know the paternity of the baby if you want." Beatrice hesitated. "What if it's Edmund's? Then we'll deal with it. But I need to know, Beatrice, to be able to plan our future." Before she could answer, they heard screams coming from Violet's room. They ran upstairs and found her having a terrible nightmare, screaming for Darla and dogs. "I don't want to sleep in the yard. Please don't hit me," she cried, still asleep. Beatrice woke her up gently, cradling her until she calmed down. "It was just a dream, sweetie. You're safe here." "I dreamed that Darla came back to get me," Violet sobbed, "that she took me away from you." Edmund sat on the edge of the bed. "That will never happen, Violet. We are your family now." But deep down, everyone knew that Darla was still out there, and that the legal battle for permanent custody was just beginning. And with the question of the paternity of Beatrice's baby still unresolved, the family situation was about to become even more complex. 6 months had passed since Violet had come to the family, and the girl had blossomed in ways that no one had. imagined possible. Now, with 7 years completed, she attended a private school in Charleston, where her teachers were impressed with her exceptional intelligence and artistic talent. Her technical drawings of furniture had become so accurate that Edmund began to use them as real reference in his factory. Beatrice was in the 5th month of pregnancy, and they finally had the answer that everyone feared and hoped for. The baby was Edmund's son. The paternity test had confirmed their suspicions, creating a complex but surprisingly harmonious family situation. "I won't lie that it doesn't hurt," said Claudio in a frank conversation with Edmund in the factory office. "But seeing how much Beatrice has healed taking care of Violet, and how you two have been reborn into parenthood, I can't fight against something that clearly should happen." "You are an extraordinary man, Claudio," replied Edmund, sincerely grateful. "Few people would have your generosity. In fact, I have a confession. I met someone at the hospital where I work, a pediatrician who lost her husband recently. Nothing has happened yet, but maybe it's time for everyone to follow our true destinies." The conversation was interrupted by Violet, who came running from school with a drawing in her hand. "Look what the teacher asked me to do. It's the design of a house for a happy family." The drawing showed a spacious house with a garden, where figures representing Edmund, Beatrice, herself, and a baby played together. In the corner, there was a smaller and isolated figure, Ron, whom she always included in her creations. "It's beautiful, sweetie," said Beatrice, caressing her already evident belly. "When the baby is born, you will be real siblings." "And can Daddy Ron live near us?" asked Violet hopefully. The question touched on a delicate issue. Ron had been discharged from the psychiatric hospital and was living in a boarding house in Colombia, working as an assistant in a local carpentry shop. His visits to Violet were regular and emotional, but he still struggled with episodes of depression and anxiety. "We'll see how things develop," replied Edmund diplomatically. That night, while Violet slept, Edmund and Beatrice talked in the mansion's garden about the future. The divorce between her and Claudio was being processed amicably, and they discussed the possibility of a new marriage. "Are you sure this is what you want?" asked Beatrice. "Aren't you feeling obligated because of the baby?" Beatrice: "I lost you once because of pride and pain. I won't make the same mistake twice. I love you, I've always loved you, and now we have Violet and this baby that's coming. It's a second chance that many don't have." She took his hand, interlacing her fingers. "Sometimes I think Isabella sent Violet to heal us." The peace of that moment was broken by the sound of the gate being forced open. Edmund stood up, alert, when he saw a familiar figure in the garden. Darla, thinner and looking desperate, walking towards the house. "I want my daughter back," she shouted, clearly altered. "You can't steal a child from her mother." "Darla, you're not Violet's mother," said Edmund firmly, placing himself protectively in front of Beatrice. "You mistreated and abandoned her." "I have rights. I took care of her for 2 years. Mistreating and neglecting, cut in Beatrice. "Violet has real family now." The noise woke Violet, who appeared at the upstairs window. Upon seeing Darla, her face paled in terror. "I don't want to leave," she cried. "Please don't let her take me." Darla tried to force her way into the house, but Edmund stopped her. That's when a second surprise arrived. Ron appeared on the other side of the garden, clearly having followed Darla. "Darla, stop it," he said, his voice firm but tired. "Violet is well taken care of here." "Ron, you should be on my side. We're family." "Family?" he laughed bitterly. "You lied to my daughter, said I abandoned her, mistreated her for months. What kind of family is that?" The confrontation that followed revealed painful truths. Darla confessed that she had hidden Ron's hospitalization because she feared losing the benefit she received for Violet. She also revealed that she had tried to force the girl to forget her father to accept a new stepfather, an abusive man. She was dating at the time, "That's why you slept in the yard," said Ron to Violet, who had come down and was hugged to Beatrice. "She wanted to isolate you from everything that reminded you of me." Myrtes arrived at that moment with 2 police officers. She had been alerted by neighbors about the invasion and brought a court order that finally granted permanent custody of Violet to Edmund and Beatrice. "Darla Costa," said one of the officers, "you are being arrested for document fraud, child, abuse, and trespassing." As Darla was taken away, shouting threats and accusations, Ron approached Violet. "My little one, Daddy needs to tell you something important." "What, Daddy?" "I found out that you and Isabella, the little girl that Edmund and Beatrice lost, were cousins. Isabella was my sister. That means you've always belonged to this family, understand?" Violet processed the information with the seriousness of an adult. "So Isabella was my cousin, and now she's in heaven taking care of us." "Exactly," said Ron with tears in his eyes, "and I'm going to live near here, in a little house that Edmund is building for me on the property. I'm going to work at the factory and see you every day." The final revelation came from Myrtes, who brought supporting documents of the true history of the family. Ron was really Isabella's half-brother, separated as children when their biological parents divorced and moved to other states. The records had been lost over the years, but the thorough investigation had revealed the connection. "Isabella and Ron had the same biological mother," explained Myrtes. "When she remarried and had Isabella, she lost contact with Ron, who was raised by his father. That's why Violet has so many characteristics similar to Isabella. They share the same blood." 2 years later, in the spring in Charleston, the family was gathered in the mansion's garden to celebrate the first birthday of Gabriel, Violet's baby brother. The girl, now 9 years old, had become an exceptional student and continued to develop her artistic talents. Ron lived in the little house that Edmund had built for him on the property, worked as a designer at the factory, and had found emotional stability. His relationship with Violet was strong and healthy, based on true love and mutual respect. Edmund and Beatrice had remarried in a simple ceremony, with Violet as maid of honor. Claudio, who was now dating the pediatrician from the hospital, maintained a respectful friendship with both, and occasionally visited the family. "You know what impresses me the most?" said Beatrice, watching Violet teach Gabriel to play with colorful wooden blocks. "How she never lost her ability to love, even after so much suffering." "Children are stronger than we imagine," replied Edmund, "and sometimes they are the ones who teach us about forgiveness and new beginnings." Violet approached them, carrying a new drawing. It was the same happy family she had drawn years ago, but now it included Ron living next door, Claudio visiting as a friend, and a small tombstone in the garden with the name Isabella, the cousin she never met, but who she always included in her prayers. "This is our true family portrait," she said, smiling. "Everyone we love is here." As the sun set over Charleston, painting the sky with pinkish hues, the family was finally complete. Not in the traditional way that anyone could imagine, but in the perfect way that love and determination could build. Violet had found her place in the world, and in doing so had healed broken hearts and reunited a family that fate had insisted on separating. Sometimes the greatest blessings arise from the most desperate moments in life, and sometimes it is the little hearts that carry the strength necessary to rebuild what seemed lost forever.